Hello and welcome to the Partner Marketing Group Marketing Matters series. Today we'll be discussing mapping content to the buyer's journey. When we look at the buyer's journey, we look in terms of the typical funnel as you see here. There are so many different ways to illustrate a funnel. Some will separate out engage and convert. Some have consideration, interest, and intent. But in general, and with working with our clients, we find that simpler is better. And in all funnels, we're almost always looking at a top, middle, and bottom. In the top of the funnel, where we're looking at attracting new prospects, you're looking at content that facilitates awareness. You want items such as industry trends and basic education on challenges and how technology can address those. In the middle of the funnel, your prospects are aware of the issue. They're typically actively searching for a solution. And you look for items that convert and engage them, specifically items that address how your solution can solve the problem they have. In the bottom of the funnel, your prospects, particularly for our clients, are now looking for a partner to help them. This may be a little different than funnels for other markets where selection of the product or service may happen in the bottom of the funnel. However, we found that in technology sales, the solution has typically already been selected by this point, often with the help of the software publisher content that's out there. So instead of deciding between two pieces of software, many times prospects are looking to determine which partner they want to work with. Of course, this is not always the case. For ISVs, for example, the bottom of the funnel is likely to be much more traditional, with prospects still weighing which software to purchase. If you are very, very focused on a specific industry and have additional add-ons or IP, that may be a little bit different from you as well. But in general, this is the standard funnel and something all B2B marketers have likely used at some point in their marketing planning. If you haven't really given it much thought recently, it may be time to reconsider its importance in planning, particularly as it relates to content. You really need to have content for all these stages. And if you use the funnel and map out the content you have, including any content pieces from the software publisher you work with, it'll be really easy to see where you have gaps so that you can then focus on filling those. When you do look at that and you start to think about how you need to fill the gaps, what content you need to create, keep the idea of what we're calling a content cluster in mind. Too often we find that marketers are really randomly creating content to map to campaigns. So for example, we want a campaign to target distributors, so we're going to create an ebook around distribution challenges. A much better approach, though, is to create more of a cluster of content that's around a central theme, and then within that, to have content that fits every stage of the sales cycle. So when you're building that central theme, think about your pillar content. That's the thought leadership, educational type of content. It could be an ebook or a white paper. It's the high value piece that people will give you their contact information for. Then from this central theme, start to think about what other content you can create that supports it. So for example, if your solution is focused on the retail industry and your pillar piece is the 5 most important decisions facing retailers, you may want a case study that highlights a customer who implemented your solution to address one or more of those decisions. So a piece that ties directly to your pillar content, but just presents a different view. A use case piece, which is essentially a visual that shows how your solution would be used in a retail environment, could be a really good piece for the middle of the funnel, for example. You can also add additional articles that go deeper into each decision, as well as product and solution sheets and even demos. So this is not meant to be all the content you should create or even the types. It's just a different way of thinking about the content as you're mapping it to the buyer's journey and as you're making content investments. And then one final note, in reality, although we keep presenting the funnel and it is still important in terms of the top, middle, and bottom, today's buyers no longer really learn about products and services through a single channel or follow a defined path. So it tends to look, the buyer's journey looks a little bit more like this than this straight line through a funnel. That doesn't mean that the funnel is irrelevant today. It just means that you need to have all this content available in various places so that the buyers can really drive their own journey and they can self-select and find the content that is going to work for them at whatever point they are. With that, I'd like to thank you. If you have any questions about this presentation, about content needs, then please feel free to reach out to the Partner Marketing Group, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.